subscribe button to support the channel. Maria Santos had never been late to work, not once in 8 months at Romano's Italian Kitchen in Austin, Texas. While other servers called in sick with hangovers or showed up dragging from late nights, Maria was always there 15 minutes early, uniform pressed, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. At 34, she was older than most of the waitstaff, but she worked harder than anyone. She memorized the menu completely within her first week. She knew every customer's usual order, remembered their names, asked about their kids. Her section always had the highest customer satisfaction scores. Jeff Thompson, the restaurant manager, had initially been skeptical about hiring her. Her resume had an unexplained 4-year gap, and she seemed almost too eager for what was essentially a minimum wage job. But Romano's was chronically understaffed, and Maria had impressed him during the interview with her composure and attention to detail. "Why do you want to work here?" he'd asked. "I need the structure," she'd answered simply. "I work well in organized environments." It was an odd answer for a restaurant job, but Jeff hired her anyway, best decision he'd made in months. Maria became the backbone of the evening shift. She could handle a full section during the dinner rush without breaking a sweat. She never argued with difficult customers, never complained about long hours or rude patrons. When newer employees made mistakes, she quietly helped them without making them feel stupid. Her coworkers liked her, but none of them really knew her. She was friendly but private, professional but distant. She never joined them for after-work drinks, never shared much about her personal life. When asked about her background, she'd just say she used to work in security. Jeff assumed she was probably a single mom trying to make ends meet, maybe had some college but never finished. The type of reliable worker every restaurant manager dreamed of finding. He had no idea that Staff Sergeant Maria Santos had commanded a military police unit in some of the most dangerous areas of Iraq. Saturday night, October 14th. Romano's was packed with the usual weekend crowd, families celebrating anniversaries, groups of friends sharing appetizers, couples on date nights. Maria was working her usual section, tables 15 through 22, moving efficiently between orders. Table 18 was a group of college students celebrating someone's 21st birthday. They'd been drinking before they arrived, and their noise level had been steadily increasing throughout the evening. Maria kept a careful eye on them, knowing from experience when a situation might need intervention. At 8:47 p.m., one of the birthday celebrants knocked over his beer bottle while gesturing dramatically during a story. The bottle hit the tile floor and exploded in a shower of brown glass and foam. The sound was sharp, sudden, unexpected. For Maria, it wasn't a beer bottle breaking, it was something else entirely. Suddenly, she wasn't standing in Romano's Italian Kitchen anymore. She was back on Route Irish in Baghdad, 2008. The convoy had stopped to check what looked like debris in the road. She was scanning the buildings on either side, rifle ready, when the IED detonated 50 meters away. Glass from shattered windows raining down like deadly confetti. Contact left. Contact left. Maria's body went rigid, her eyes fixed on the broken glass spreading across the restaurant floor, but she wasn't seeing restaurant glass. She was seeing the aftermath of an explosion that had killed 2 soldiers and wounded 5 others. The dining room noise faded to a distant hum. Her breathing became shallow, rapid. Her hands started to shake. For 30 seconds, Maria Santos was completely gone. "Maria, Maria!" Jeff's voice cut through the flashback like a knife. Maria blinked, shook her head, and suddenly she was back in the restaurant. Customers were staring. Her coworkers were looking concerned. The broken glass was still there, but it was just a beer bottle again. "What the hell was that?" Jeff demanded, pulling her aside. Maria's heart was still racing. Her hands were still shaking. "I'm sorry, I zoned out for a second." "Zoned out? You were standing there like a statue for half a minute, in the middle of the dinner rush. Do you know how that looked to customers?" "It won't happen again." Jeff studied her face. Her pupils seemed dilated, and she was sweating despite the restaurant's air conditioning. "Are you on something?" "What? No? Then what was that about? Are you having some kind of medical episode?" Maria couldn't explain. "How do you tell your manager that breaking glass sometimes makes you think you're back in a war zone? How do you explain PTSD to someone who's never heard incoming mortar fire?" "I'm fine. It was just a momentary lapse. I'm sorry." Jeff wasn't satisfied. "This isn't the first time you've acted strange when there's been a loud noise or something breaks." He was right. Maria had been managing her triggers for months, but Jeff had apparently been paying more attention than she realized. She'd thought she'd been subtle about stepping away when pans crashed in the kitchen or when servers dropped plates. "Look, Maria, you're a good worker, but I can't have this. We're in the service industry. Customers come here to relax and enjoy themselves. They don't want to see servers having some kind of breakdown." It wasn't a breakdown. Then what would you call it? Maria looked around the restaurant. Normal people living normal lives, enjoying normal Saturday nights. None of them had ever had to search for improvised explosive devices or identify potential suicide bombers in a crowd. I'd call it a bad moment. Everyone has them. Jeff shook his head. Not at work. Not in front of customers. "I'm sorry, Maria, but I have to let you go. You're firing me. I'm sorry. You're a good worker, but this behavior is unacceptable. I can't risk having employees who might freeze up during busy periods." Maria felt the familiar weight of disappointment settling on her chest. This job had been her anchor for 8 months. The routine, the structure, the purpose, it had helped her feel normal again. "Jeff, please, I need this job. I'm sure you'll find something else. I'll give you a good reference for the work you did before this." Before this. As if her 8 months of perfect service could be erased by 30 seconds of trauma response. "What about my final paycheck? I'll have it ready Tuesday. You can pick it up then." Maria nodded, untied her apron and handed it to Jeff. "For what it's worth, I really did try. I know you did, but trying isn't enough in this business." As Maria gathered her things from the employee break room, her coworker Ashley approached. "That was bullshit," Ashley said quietly. "You're the best server we have." "It's fine." "No, it's not. Jeff's an asshole, everyone knows it." Maria managed a weak smile. "Take care of yourself, Ash." She walked out of Romano's Italian kitchen for the last time, not knowing that her termination paperwork would set off a chain of events that would change everything. Tuesday morning, Romano's corporate headquarters in Dallas. Jennifer Walsh, HR director for Romano's restaurant group, processed the weekend's paperwork while sipping her second cup of coffee. Terminations, new hires, disciplinary actions, the usual Monday administrative tasks. Maria Santos's termination caught her attention, but not for the reason Jeff had expected. Romano's had a corporate policy requiring additional review for any employee terminated within their first year, especially those with exemplary performance records. Maria's file showed 8 months of perfect attendance, consistently high customer ratings, and 0 disciplinary actions prior to her termination. The reason given was erratic behavior during service. Jennifer frowned. Something didn't add up. Perfect employees don't suddenly become erratic without cause. She pulled up Maria's original application and employment records. That's when she found the military service disclosure. Maria had listed U.S. Army 2005-2009 under previous employment. Most managers glossed over military service, but Jennifer was required to note it for federal hiring preference programs. She ran Maria's name through the company's veteran database, a system Romano's used to track military employees for corporate diversity reporting. What came back made Jennifer's coffee mug slip from her hands. Maria Santos wasn't just a veteran. According to the Department of Defense records, she was Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, Military Police, 82nd Airborne Division. 3 combat deployments, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Combat Action Badge. And at the bottom of the record, a notation that made Jennifer reach immediately for her phone. Medal of Honor recipient. "Get me Robert Romano on the line, now." Robert Romano, CEO and founder of Romano's, was in a board meeting when his assistant interrupted with Jennifer Walsh's urgent call. "Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt, but HR needs to speak with you immediately. It's about a veteran termination that may have legal implications." Romano excused himself from the meeting. As a former Marine who'd served in Desert Storm, he took veteran employment issues seriously. It was also why Romano's had implemented veteran hiring preferences and specific PTSD workplace accommodations after consulting with legal experts. "What happened?" he asked when Jennifer explained the situation. "One of our managers terminated a Medal of Honor recipient for what appears to be a PTSD episode, without following any of our veteran support protocols." Romano felt his jaw tighten. "Which location?" "Austin." "Manager Jeff Thompson." "What's his background with veteran employees?" "Limited. No specialized training. and his file shows he's never had veteran-related HR situations before. Romano was already calculating travel time to Austin. I need to handle this personally. Cancel my afternoon appointments. Sir, our legal team recommends we start with a phone investigation first. This could become a discrimination lawsuit. That's exactly why I need to go there myself. This isn't just about legal liability, it's about doing what's right. While Romano drove toward Austin, Jennifer Walsh began her investigation. She called the restaurant and spoke with several employees who'd witnessed Maria's termination. The picture that emerged made her increasingly angry. Ashley, the server, described Maria as the most professional person I've ever worked with, and said Jeff's firing was completely unfair. Carlos, a line cook, said Maria had helped him improve his English and always treated kitchen staff with respect. Even customers had noticed. Romano's used online review monitoring, and Jennifer found multiple recent reviews specifically praising Maria for her exceptional service. Then Jennifer found the security footage. The restaurant's cameras had captured the entire incident. Jennifer watched Maria freeze when the bottle broke, saw her obvious distress, witnessed Jeff's immediate dismissal without any attempt to understand what had happened. What the camera also showed was Maria's behavior in the moments before the incident. Professional, attentive, completely normal. This wasn't an unstable employee having a breakdown. This was someone experiencing a trauma response. Jennifer printed everything and prepared a file for Romano's arrival. Romano's restaurant group headquarters called the Austin location at 2:30 p.m. with specific instructions. Jeff Thompson was to remain on site until the CEO arrived, and he was to have all employment records ready for review. Jeff had no idea what was coming. When Romano walked into the restaurant at 3:45 p.m., Jeff assumed it was a routine corporate visit. He greeted the CEO with a smile and offered the standard tour. "Skip the tour," Romano said curtly. "We need to talk about Maria Santos." Jeff's smile faltered. "The server I had to terminate? What about her? Let's start with why you fired a Medal of Honor recipient without checking her background first." The blood drained from Jeff's face. "Medal of Honor? I don't understand. Maria Santos is a decorated combat veteran who served 3 tours in Iraq. She received the nation's highest military honor for valor in combat, and you fired her for having what was clearly a PTSD episode." Jeff sank into a chair. "I didn't know. She never mentioned. Why would she? Would it have changed how you treated her if you'd known?" Jeff stammered, trying to find words that would make this better. "There weren't any." Romano continued. "I've reviewed her employment record. 8 months of perfect performance, 0 complaints, multiple customer commendations, and you terminated her immediately after a 30-second incident without asking if she needed help or accommodations. I thought she might be on drugs. Did you ask her? Did you suggest she speak with our employee assistance program? Did you follow any of the veteran support protocols outlined in our employee handbook?" Jeff realized he'd never read the veteran support section of the handbook. He hadn't even known it existed. "Mr. Romano, I made a mistake. If I had known, the problem isn't that you didn't know about her service record. The problem is that you didn't care enough to find out why a perfect employee was having a bad moment." Romano spread Maria's military records across the table in Jeff's office. Staff Sergeant Santos was leading a convoy security patrol in Baghdad when her vehicle hit an IED. She was knocked unconscious and woke up to find 2 of her soldiers dead and 3 others critically wounded. She performed emergency medical care under enemy fire for 40 minutes until air support arrived. Jeff stared at the documents. Purple Heart citation, Bronze Star, Combat Action Badge, words like conspicuous gallantry and extraordinary heroism. "She saved those 3 soldiers' lives," Romano continued, "but she's carried survivor's guilt for 15 years. The sound of breaking glass triggers flashbacks to that day. I didn't know. That's the 2nd time you've said that. Here's what you should have known. Our company policy requires managers to consider whether unusual behavior might be related to military service before taking disciplinary action. It's been in the handbook for 5 years. Jeff realized his career at Romano's was over. Maria came to work here because she needed structure and purpose after struggling with civilian readjustment. You gave her that for 8 months. Then you took it away in 30 seconds because you couldn't be bothered to show basic human compassion. Romano stood up. "Clean out your office, Jeff. Your employment is terminated immediately." "Sir, please, I can fix this." "How?" "By apologizing to a Medal of Honor recipient you publicly humiliated and fired for having PTSD." Jeff had no answer. Maria Santos lived in a small apartment complex on Austin's east side. When Romano knocked on her door at 6 p.m., she answered cautiously, still wearing the jeans and Romano's t-shirt she'd worn to pick up her final paycheck. "Miss Santos? I'm Robert Romano, CEO of Romano's Restaurant Group. Could I speak with you for a few minutes?" Maria's first instinct was that she was in some kind of additional trouble. "Is this about Saturday night?" "Yes, ma'am. May I come in?" Maria's apartment was small but immaculate. Military precision in every detail, everything in its place, nothing wasted or excessive. On one wall hung a single-framed photograph, Maria in army dress uniform receiving the Medal of Honor from the president. Romano stopped in front of the photo. "Staff Sergeant Santos, you know?" "I know, and I came to apologize." Maria gestured for him to sit on her small couch. "Mr. Romano, you don't need to apologize for your manager's decision. I understand I acted inappropriately." "No, you didn't. You had a trauma response to a trigger. That's not inappropriate. It's a normal reaction for someone who's experienced combat." Maria was quiet for a long moment. "Jeff told you." "Jeff is no longer with the company. I fired him this afternoon." Maria looked surprised. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did. What happened to you was discrimination, plain and simple. Romano's has policies to support veteran employees, and Jeff ignored all of them." Romano leaned forward. "Maria, I'm a Marine veteran myself. I served in Desert Storm. I may not have experienced what you went through, but I understand military service. And I understand that heroes don't stop being heroes just because they sometimes struggle with civilian life." "I'd like to offer you your job back," Romano said. Maria shook her head. "I don't want special treatment because of my service record." "This isn't special treatment. This is correcting a wrong. You were fired illegally under our company policies and federal veteran protection laws." "What about the other employees?" "They saw what happened. They'll know I'm getting special consideration." Romano smiled. "They'll know you're getting justice. There's a difference." He pulled out a folder. "I'd also like to offer you a position at our corporate training center. We're developing a veteran employment program, and we need someone with your background to help design it." Maria looked at the job description. Training coordinator, veteran outreach specialist, salary almost double what she'd made as a server. "Why?" "Because you understand what it's like to transition from military to civilian life. You know the challenges veterans face in finding meaningful employment, and you know what employers need to learn about supporting military employees." Maria studied the papers. "This seems like a lot more than correcting a wrong." "Maria, can I ask you something personal?" She nodded. "Why did you take a server job when you clearly have leadership and training experience?" Maria was quiet for a long time. Finally, "Because serving tables felt safe, predictable. I could control my environment, my interactions, my schedule. After years of making life and death decisions, I just wanted to do something simple." "I understand. But maybe it's time to do something meaningful again." 6 months later, Maria Santos stood in front of a room full of Romano's managers from across Texas, conducting a training session on veteran employment and PTSD awareness. "Combat veterans often seem like ideal employees," she told the group. "We're disciplined, reliable, good under pressure, but we also carry invisible wounds that can sometimes show up in unexpected ways." She clicked to the next slide. "A veteran who freezes when glass breaks isn't being dramatic. They're experiencing a neurological response to trauma. Your job as managers is to recognize these moments and respond with support, not punishment." Jeff Thompson sat in the back row, not as a Romano's employee. His firing had stuck, but as a participant in a community workshop on veteran employment that Maria had expanded beyond Romano's. After the session, he approached her. "Maria, I wanted to apologize." "You don't need to." "Yes, I do. I was ignorant and unfair. What happened to you was wrong." Maria studied his face. "Have you learned anything?" "I've learned that everyone has a story, and that sometimes what looks like a problem is really just pain that hasn't been acknowledged." Maria nodded. "That's a good lesson." Jeff hesitated. Is there anything I can do to make this right?" "You can treat the next veteran employee you encounter with the respect they've earned. That's how you make it right." Romano's veteran employment program became a model for the restaurant industry. Other chains sent representatives to study their methods. Maria spoke at conferences, wrote training materials, consulted with companies nationwide. The program addressed practical issues: how to recognize PTSD symptoms, how to provide workplace accommodations, how to tap into veterans' leadership skills. But at its core, it was about something simpler: treating people with dignity. Maria still worked at the Austin restaurant one shift per week by choice. She wanted to stay connected to the frontline employee experience. Her former coworkers treated her with the same respect they always had, but now they understood her better. Ashley, the server who defended Maria the night she was fired, enrolled in college using tuition assistance from Romano's Veteran Education Fund, a program Maria had championed. Carlos, the line cook, became the restaurant's first veteran hiring coordinator, helping other Spanish-speaking veterans navigate the employment process. Even the customers noticed the change. Romano's developed a reputation as a veteran-friendly employer, and business increased as the community supported their commitment to hiring heroes. 1 year after her firing, Maria returned to Table 18, where everything had changed. The restaurant was busy, the same Saturday night energy she remembered. A server dropped a plate in the kitchen. The crash echoed through the dining room. Maria felt the familiar flutter of anxiety, but it passed quickly. She'd learned coping strategies, found therapists who understood military trauma, built a support network of other veterans. Most importantly, she'd found purpose again. Robert Romano joined her at the table. "How are you feeling?" "Grateful." "For what?" Maria looked around the restaurant, at employees who'd been trained to support each other, at managers who understood that strength sometimes looks like vulnerability, at a workplace that had become a model for veteran inclusion. For getting fired by someone who didn't understand, because it led to this. Romano smiled. "Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you creates the opportunity for the best thing. I prefer to think that sometimes the right people are in the right place at the right time to do the right thing, even when it doesn't feel right at first. Especially then." Maria Santos could have stayed quiet about her military service. She could have hidden her struggles with PTSD, pretended that 30 seconds of trauma response was just a bad moment. Instead, she turned her pain into purpose. Her firing became the foundation for a program that has helped hundreds of veterans find meaningful employment, and dozens of companies learn how to support military employees. Jeff Thompson learned that assumptions can destroy lives, but acknowledgement can rebuild them. He now works for a nonprofit that helps veterans transition to civilian careers. Robert Romano learned that sometimes the best business decisions aren't about profit margins or efficiency metrics. Sometimes they're about simple human decency. The moral isn't that every story has a happy ending, it's that every ending can become a new beginning if the right people choose to do the right thing. Maria Santos didn't need rescuing, she needed understanding. The difference between those two things can change everything. For a veteran struggling with invisible wounds, respect isn't special treatment, it's basic human dignity. And sometimes that makes all the difference. Thank you for watching People's Journal Stories. If you know a veteran whose service and struggles deserve recognition, share their story in the comments. And if you believe stories like this need to be heard, don't forget to subscribe. We share stories that remind us to honor those who served every week.